Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. Really excited to be here with everyone. My name is Ricky. Today, we are running our second episode of our Freelancer Masterclass. And today's topic is going to be defining your service offerings. So I see a lot of familiar faces and names. Well, not so much faces, a lot of the cameras off, but I see a lot of familiar names. Welcome to the event. Thank you so much for supporting us and joining us. And I'll kickstart this event. So today we'll talk about three main things. So the main topic of the day is really to kind of help us figure out how to define our service or services as freelancers. And the three sub-bullet points I want to get into today are, first is how do you figure out what you can sell? Obviously, we are trying to talk about what we can make money from. Second is thinking about how do we carve out a niche for ourselves as a freelancer. And finally, figuring out how do we actually package these offerings into something that is attractive to the market. So for today's session, we have a relatively small group and it's intentional. So I want us to, as much as possible, make it interactive. So if you have any questions, if you have any comments, I'm sure there are people here who are, experienced, who's done, freelancing for a while. So just unmute yourself or drop your message in the chat. Interrupt me anytime you want. There's no such thing as a stupid question. We're all here to learn. So just, ping me, DM me, shout out your questions, and we'll try to address it as we go. So before we begin, I think I just want to give a quick introduction about myself. So why am I talking about this topic, right? So who's this person? So my name is Ricky. I am the co-founder and the CEO of Ravelry. Ravelry is a freelancing platform that is based in Singapore and Indonesia. We are focused on helping serious freelancers who want to kind of build a business around this site, this initially, supposed to be side gig kind of thing, into a proper business that can sustain them as their core income. And we built a lot of tools and solutions to support freelancers in doing that, specifically freelancers from Southeast Asia. We've been around for about 3 years. And why did I start this company? So there's me and Aditya, who's also on this call. We co-founded this company because we are very, very passionate about helping individuals, do things they love and make it sustainable. And personally, Aditya and I have also been a freelancer for a while. So I've been freelancing for 5 years, and I've managed to turn my freelancing business into more than just a solopreneur endeavor. So we are now an agency. I've managed to kind of turn it into something that is sustainable. And to be honest, Ravelry, my startup, has actually been bootstrapped through me as a freelancer in the past, being a freelancer in the past 5 years. So I'm keen to kind of see how I can impart some of this understanding of, being a freelancer, some of this knowledge, the insights I got, and hopefully, help more people do things that they love. So let's begin. So I think first and foremost, we're just going to jump straight into this. So I hope that people who come to this call of this event has already had an idea what they want to sell. I hope that you guys already have a clue, right, what kind of services you want to offer to your clients. Can I just get a maybe show of just drop a message in the chat telling me really, really quickly, like, what are some of the things that you hope to be able to scale, as a freelancer or to grow as a freelancer, just so that I can also contextualize the content a little bit based on what kind of freelancer you are. So just unmute yourself, tell me what you do, or just drop a message in the chat. So while I'm waiting for people to drop the message, maybe I can tell you guys a little bit about my freelance gig. So when I started, I was actually a freelance consultant. So I basically go to companies and tell them that I can help them solve problems. Right now, we are specifically in the innovation consulting space, and we provide training people in leadership development services. And we also help them build what's called an innovation pipeline. And I'll explain a little bit more later as we go through this event. But I do see people dropping their messages already. So we have Lena D, who is a researcher and a writer. David, a content writer. Reza, he's in due diligence. Thanks for coming back, Reza. We had you in the previous session. Vargas, research and writing, academic papers mostly. Bella, primary, secondary data collector and analyst. Okay, cool, thank you. So there's a lot of writers, there's a lot of analysts in this group. So I'll try to cater a little bit the content to that direction. Give me a second. Let me admit a few people who seems to have been kicked out. Okay, cool. So I think first and foremost, I want to address some of the things that we shouldn't do, when you are a freelancer or when you're selling anything, in fact, right? Specifically services. I think the first common mistake that people make when they're thinking about, selling their services or thinking about, going out there as a freelancer is to be a jack of all trades, right? So a lot of the people who, I've known as a freelancer, they started after they kind of had a career in the specific vertical or industry they are offering freelancer services now. So for example, I have a friend who actually, became a freelance salesperson whose job was basically to connect people, and his goal as a freelancer was to kind of like help facilitate a lot of big ticket item sales for his friends and for his connection, right? So this guy's name is Chris, right? So he quit his job, he became this freelance connector slash business development person, right? Now the challenge with Chris was he dealt with a lot of things. He started trying to connect someone who sold like a coffee, like in megatons kind of volume to their friends, right? To his friends. He started to find investors for a cafe. He started kind of like, figuring out how to basically export an excavation machine. So he did a bunch of random things, right? Now, the challenge with Chris is that I really admire his attempt at, building this freelance business development business, right? Now, the challenge with Chris is that because he tries to connect everyone, and he tries to play in all sorts of industries and doing everything, I, as someone who wants to help him, who wants to use his service, have no clue, like, what I do, when I go to Chris and, try to get my problem solved. I have no idea what kind of service he offers. I don't even know what kind of network he has, right? So, the reason why I have like this image of a Swiss Army knife is you don't actually go to a professional, right, who actually uses Swiss Army knife to provide their service, right? You don't want to go to a jack of all trades who says that he can do everything, right? You're not going to go to a restaurant whose chef is using a Swiss Army knife to chop up the vegetables or the meat. You're not going to go to an engineer or an electrician who uses a Swiss Army knife to fix your light bulb, right? I mean, like, you don't want to pay money for someone like that, right? So the first mistake that I realized a lot of people make as a freelancer is that because they just started on their journey, they just kind of like, got into this whole freelancer gig thing. They are so eager to just, make a deal, right? They're just so eager to kind of like get a project that they offer everything and anything, right? So first mistake is that it's not great because people just get so overwhelmed by like the kind of things that you can do for them. They have no idea where to begin. They have no idea what you can actually do. And people have no idea like what you can, like who you are as a person. Like they don't actually understand the kind of services you offer, right? And they don't have any trust in terms of your credibility in delivering any of these solutions that you promise you can deliver, right? So first tip, don't be a jack of all trades when you start as a freelancer, okay? Now, the second thing is, this is what I call like the grocer man. So there's this type of salesperson who just go to you and start listing things out, right? So as someone who is, like, again, as a freelancer, yeah, you might have a lot of skills, right? You might have a lot of, offerings that you can, sell to your clients, right? So for example, if you're a writer, you can say, oh yeah, I can write content, I can write articles, I can write newsletters, I can help you do thought leadership, I can help you do the research, I can help you interview the client, interview someone to be incorporated into the article. You can do a bunch of things, right? Now, the challenge with someone who basically has a long laundry list of services, and by the way, that was me when I started my freelancing consulting service. I started by telling all my clients A to Z of the things that I can do, right? So I started going to them and tell them that, oh yeah, we offer innovation training, but we can also do strategy if you need strategy. And like the third thing we offer that we actually can help you build new products. We can teach leadership as well, and we can do cultural transformation. Like there's just so much that, we bombard our clients with. And the challenge with this kind of like offerings, right, and this kind of service is that clients get overwhelmed, right? They have no idea where to begin. By the time you finish like rattling on with your list of services, they have forgotten why in the first place they booked this meeting with you, right? So as a freelancer, it's not great as well if you kind of know like what you can offer, what you can do, but it's not great if you just bombard your clients with a long list of everything that you can do, right? So, and this is also the same reason why Steve Jobs at Apple, when he came back after he was ousted, the first thing he did when he came back to Apple was he looked at the list of dozens of products and solutions that Apple was offering back then. And he literally slashed all of that, canceled all those product development team, and only left with four products, literally just 4 products out of like, I don't know, 20, 30 plus products at that point in time, right? And it's important to do that because, and especially for us as a freelancer, right? Because we can't do all of this. We can't really scale ourselves like doing 20 different things, right? So it's very important for us to be able to kind of like be known in terms of like what we're good at, right? And be able to kind of like do that in a repetitive way or in a scalable way. And that's how we kind of like make our mark in the market or in the industry, right? So again, as a freelancer, you do not want to be, the grocery list freelancer, okay? Focus on just 1 or 2 things that you're really good at and just, carve out like your space, by doing those things. And the third thing, I think this is something that all of you probably know by now, is you don't want to be a vanilla like provider, right? You do not want to just be a generic product, right? Ultimately, the challenge, and this is something that we believe in strongly at Ravenry, right? We don't believe in the pure marketplace model because we don't think that it makes sense for anyone to just tell people what they can do without any proper vetting, right? So you don't want to go to a marketplace and just tell people that, yeah, I can do logo, and that there's like the next 2,000 people on the list on Upwork or Fiverr.com can also do logo, right? So you can't sell and differentiate yourself as a freelancer if you do not have anything specific about you, right? I was actually, when I first moved to Singapore, my first job was actually to sell sugar. I was literally working with a company that owns sugar plantation in Vietnam, and they're trying to like figure out how to sell sugar to different country, right? That's my job, right? And I can tell you, in the sugar market, sugar is super undifferentiated, right? Like everywhere you go, sugar is the same. There's a standard for it, right? Like there's no way you can change like what sugar is, right? And there was zero differentiation in terms of like what I can do to tell people that, oh yeah, I'm a better company to buy sugar from, right? I have better sugar. There's no way I can say I have better sugar. It's just sugar, right? So the only point of difference is price at that point in time. And again, as a freelancer, we are people who trade our time, right, for money, right? We are people who trade our skill sets and our expertise for money, right? If you start to compete on price, you will not be able to make a sustainable business out of freelancing. And therefore, you want to, as much as possible, learn or figure out what makes you different in the market, right? Or at least start to build those differentiators for yourself in the market. So these are the first 3 things that you should avoid, right? In being a freelancer. So the question is this, right? So if you're just starting out, or even if you've kind of like been doing this for a while, think about this, right? If you can just sell one thing only, right, as a freelancer, right, that will help you scale, one thing that you enjoy doing, right? What would that one thing be, right? And can you at least be able to articulate that one thing in this following way, right? I solve X pain point for X customer by providing X service. Can you at least articulate what your offering is in this manner, right? So for me, for example, right, like again, I started my freelancing journey as an innovation consultant, right? I didn't start as an innovation consultant. I just started as a consultant, right? But over the years, we started to kind of like be more and more specific in terms of what we offer to our customers. And right now I can easily say that, yep, I solve my clients' issues with innovation, right? Specifically in developing new products for large corporates. We only work with large corporates right now, right? Basically companies with more than like 1,000 to 2,000 people, by providing innovation, design, thinking services. So we actually literally just provide, training and consulting services around design thinking. And that's all we do. We don't do anything else, right? So after years of trying to go to different clients and trying to solve everyone's problems, right? And trying to do so many things, we realized that this is what we're really, really good at. And we just focus on this one pinpoint for our customers, right? So for you, are you able to articulate your service or your offerings in this way? And even if you could, right, it's really, really important to still think about how do you find a niche for yourself, right? So why is it so important to kind of like figure out like, it's like, your niche, right? So again, as I've mentioned before, with the whole sugar example or like a logo designer example, you won't stand out in a market, right? If you don't have anything unique about yourself, right? There's no restaurants in the world that says that I do all sorts of cuisine, right? All sorts of food, right? You won't go to that restaurant because you know that there's not one thing they're going to be good at, right? You'll go to like a Chinese restaurant, you'll go to a Thai restaurant. Even restaurants have niches, right? Even fast food restaurants like McDonald's, KFC, Wendy's, Subway, they have niches. They all sell sandwiches, right? I mean, like you can call them whatever you want, burger, but they're all different, right? You go to like KFC for a different kind of burger. You go to McDonald's for a different kind of burger. You go to Subway for a different kind of like sandwich. So even for companies like that, it's so important for them to have a niche, right? And if even companies like that have a niche and they're still scalable, right? Why don't you, as an individual creator or service provider, have something specific that you can do? There's no way you can do so many things. Even McDonald's, KFC, they chose what they wanted to do. They chose their menu, right? They don't do everything for a reason, right? So we need to kind of like have a niche because that will help us stand out a bit more in the market, right? And honestly, I think having a niche really helps us sell better, right? So one of the challenges in the beginning, if you don't really know what you want to sell, right, and you're trying to sell everything, is that you'll approach everyone. You'll try to sell your time, your expertise to anyone and everyone who wants to pay you, right? And that's a problem because you have no focus. Your conversion rate, from your first meeting with a client to finally closing a deal is going to be miserable, right? You won't be able to get like good results from it, right? And so having a niche really helps you define and narrow down who are the people that you want to reach out to. At the same time, having a niche helps these people find you, right? If you go online and just, or Upwork and just type like a writer, right? I need a freelance writer. There'll be millions of people who are offering that service, right? So you need to find like, something specific within that domain of writing that will make you unique, because that will help you stand out and help you sell much, much more quickly, right? And the reason why niche is important as well is that niche, let me try to move my head away. Niche equals value. Niche equals premium, right? So you don't want to pay Cadbury milk chocolate a lot of money, right? Because you know that there's a lot of other chocolate bars, milk chocolate bars that is, probably taste the same. It's very hard to tell the difference. That is going to be competitive in terms of pricing, right? So you won't pay a lot of money for like a Cadbury dairy milk like product, right? But you'll pay a lot of money for a Marrow chocolate that actually has single origin chocolate bean, handpicked in Vietnam and like curated with, I don't know, 20 different spices and cooked in, like, I don't know how long. And you pay for that kind of product because it's unique, because you want to see like what's the difference about it. You want to experience like that, that premium quality product, right? So nicheness, or I don't even know if that's a word, having specificity in your service offerings really help you price better as well, right? So remember, you want to find a niche because, again, you want to scale. You want to make more buck for every hour that you put into your business, into your freelance service, right? So make sure that by having a niche, you can also like, charge more as well for your services. Then the next question is, how on earth do I go around and find my niche, right? So a couple of tips and tricks, again, from my experience. Figure out like what vertical you want to master and go deep, right? So I'm using an example here, which is a writing example. And thankfully, a lot of people who join today are writers and researchers, right? Figure out, right, as a writer, like what kind of writing do you want to do, right? Do you want to just do articles, right? And if so, articles, what kind of articles? Do you want to just do like SEO article, which is like, okay, just put out like 2,000 word article about something, as long as you use all the SEO keywords, and it doesn't have to be really high quality. It doesn't have to be investigative, right? It's fine, right? Or do you want to write like investigative article with like a lot of deep dive analysis, with a lot of interviews, primary research, surveys? That's a different kind of writing. That's a different kind of article, right, that you're producing. Or you can choose to be a copywriter, right? And even under that subgroup or subskill of copywriting, there's a lot of different things that you can copyright for. You can copyright for a website. You can copyright for a product packaging. You can copyright for social media, right? There's a lot of different things that you can do, right? So first and foremost, think about your domain. Think about your vertical, right? And figure out what subskills within that domain can you own, can you master, right? And sell that and focus on just that niche for yourself, right? Because the reality is this, most of the time, and especially with freelancers, right, experienced freelancers, you already have a natural niche for yourself, right? Most people who kind of like gone into freelancing, they've done really well with what they do with their career, you know, like, and they have a lot of experience, you know, doing what they're doing. At the same time, there is also this intersect with, like, you know, the kind of people they know, the kind of network that they've built over the years, right? And that intersect between what you know, right, and who you know, right, is where your natural niche is, right? So again, for example, right, for me, I was a consultant for a good 5-6 years before I started my freelance business. And when I was in consulting, I knew that, you know, I know how to do strategy. I know how to do implementation. I know how to run training, right? And I know specifically within that training, I know how to do innovation, right? So in the universe of the things that I know, there is all these different things that I can actually offer as a service, right? So first and foremost, I wanted to figure out, right, what is most aligned with my personal interests and my personal goal in life, right? So where do we want to get to, right? And also figure out, like, of all the things that I can do, which one's most scalable, right? So that's kind of like the domain of like what I know, right? So the black circle, basically. The second area that I was thinking about was, who do I know that will help me, you know, be successful in my niche, right? So for some reason, I know a lot of people in startups, right? I know a lot of venture builders. I know a lot of accelerators. I know a lot of large corporates who actually are trying to do more innovation, right? Quote unquote, you know, corporate speak of innovation is very different to like startup speak of innovation. So I'm specifically referring to like corporate speak of innovation, right? So I know a lot of people who are either in like innovation office, right, in a large company, or they are like a HR person who is in charge of doing innovation transformation, agile training, design thinking, like for their teams, for the employees, right? And when I look at those two universes, one is the people I know, and one is the things that I know as a consultant, it was very obvious that innovation consulting is a great niche for me to be in. And at that point in time, I was in Singapore. There's not too many like design thinking innovation agency. So it was very easy for me to kind of like position myself in that niche and stand out, right? And be able to kind of offer my service without having too many competitors, without having to kind of like compete on price, without having to deal with like long sales process, because most of the people, again, are the people that I already know, right? They're already in my network. They know who I am. They know my skill sets, right? So it's very easy for me to kind of like kickstart that freelance business and get it rolling to this day, right? So think about your experience, right, in life, right? What have you built in terms of skills and expertise that you can actually sell, right? And figure out where does that intersect with the network of people that you know, right? So for instance, if you're a writer, right, do you know a lot of publishers, right? Or do you know a lot of marketing managers from tech companies, right? And if so, should you do more tech writing, right? If you are someone who is a writer and also you have done some engineering before, right? Should you become more like a technical writer for like, you know, SaaS companies, for example, right? So figure out where that intersect lies and define what that natural niche is for you, right? And ideally, you want to kind of like play in that sphere or play in that overlap, because that will give you the best benefit in terms of like getting you started as a freelancer and potentially scaling as well. And there are a few ways you can think about like finding this niche, right? So one is you can think about, how do I craft my service or my offering based on the situation that my target customers are in, right? Or you can also create a niche within specific locations or geography, right? So for instance, in Singapore, there's a lot of people who's offering legal services to startups, because Singapore is a booming startup ecosystem. There's a lot of companies, small companies that have no money to actually hire the really big name law firm, and therefore there's a lot of these independent service providers or lawyers that's offering like legal advice to startups, right? So that's an example, right? It's very niche, very specific to Singapore. They help them incorporate in Singapore. They help them file their annual general meetings, stuff like that. So again, very specific to location, right? Or you can specify your niche based on the customer segments, right? You can say, oh, I'm only going to target startups. I'm only going to target startups in SaaS. I'm only going to target e-commerce companies, right? So again, you can actually have like a very specific niche as well, depending on your customers, right? I didn't explain the situation bit. So situation, for example, right? If you, let's say again, like if you're a writer, right? Maybe your niche is in helping marketing managers write thought leadership reports or articles, right? Not so much the day-to-day, like article that you post on a blog, but maybe more of like, oh, like a research or an article about like, the e-commerce landscape in Southeast Asia, right? Like a very deep dive article analysis about specific industry, right? So like the situation that you're solving for is when the companies actually are looking to build thought leadership, right? So you specifically target companies who are thinking about those kind of activities, are in those kind of situations, who's trying to build their brand by creating really high quality content, right? So again, depending on your skill set, you can think about and brainstorm yourself, right? What are the unique use cases I can go into? I can create my offerings within based on situation, based on where I am or where my customers are, and based on who my customers are or what industries they're in. Just some examples, right, of unique offerings that I've seen in the market. Let me just take a sip of water. So this is a company that is founded by my friend who is based in the US. It's called Ritza. My friend is actually a developer, but he's become like quite a great writer, and he started as a freelancer, and he literally goes to companies that are doing like tech companies, engineers that are doing a lot of documentation, and he basically offered just writing services to them, right? He also offered writing services to these companies in terms of creating content, because not a lot of people can write about the cloud technology, right, into an article, right? You need to have like some sort of expertise, and you need to have some sort of like technical knowledge to be able to kind of like provide those kind of writing service. So this company, for example, Ritza, has been able to kind of like focus on doing technical writing for engineers. Another company, again, this is a company in Singapore. It's also owned by one of my friends, who's also my mentor. She actually started this company because she realized that there's a lot of startups popping up in Singapore. And again, similar to what I was saying about legal services, startups are desperate to get recruitment services as well, right? Especially when they're hiring for, like important roles in their company, like, a growth manager or like a new COO, or even hiring like a co-founder, right? So this company is highly specialized in serving the startup market in Singapore, and they just do recruitment for these startups, right? Again, very niche, very specific use cases, and also very specific customer segment and geography. I have a question from Arika, so let me just read that. Hey, Ricky, I have a question. You mentioned that most freelancers already have strong experience based on their career. I'm just wondering, how can I build my portfolio when you don't have strong career background to back up your skill you want to sell? Okay, so this is a great question. The answer is, initially, I think you just need to expose yourself to more relevant projects that will help you build your credibility in the market, right? So, take on like most relevant projects. So again, like back to what I was saying earlier, just because you don't have a niche yet, doesn't mean that like you don't have like, those expertise yet, doesn't mean you don't know like what kind of niche you want to get into, right? So focus on, thinking about what niche, what kind of specialization you want to get into, and take on projects in those industries from those kind of clients, right? Give them a great deal, right? Especially when you're just starting out, give them a great deal, right? But know how to kind of like price yourself up, and we'll talk about like pricing as well in future episodes. But like know how to kind of like give them a great deal that will help you build that portfolio early on. Get your testimonials from them. Make sure that it's everywhere on your website or on your LinkedIn, and like slowly build your capability from there. So hopefully that answers your question, Arika. Yeah. Another example that I want to show that I thought was really interesting when it comes to coming up with a niche is this company that actually just provides website building services to churches. That's all they do. That's all they do. And I know for a fact, because I've kind of like heard the founder spoke about this, they're making hundreds and thousands of dollars every year just by doing one thing, right? Website solutions for churches, and that's all they do, right? So again, find your niche, make it easy for people to find you, right? Make it easy for you to find your target customers and be really good at what you do, right? Understand your customers really well and just deliver those service, and your business can be scalable that way, right? So ideally, you should be able to kind of like, craft your problem, your offering, right, into the following statement, right? You need to think about whether or not your solution solve a very specific problem, right? So first and foremost, keyword is solve, right? If you don't solve a problem, you're just offering like, oh, I can do logo, but like what problem does it solve? If that's not clear, it's not going to be convincing, right? So figure out how to solve a specific problem. So again, figure out what your niche in a clear and convincing way, right? And that's important. But the question is that enough, right? Is it enough to just, know how to solve a specific problem in a clear and convincing way? A lot of people can do that, right? A lot of people are offering like, again, going back for lack of better options or better idea, like logo services. A lot of people know how to articulate, how they can create like a really good logo in like in their process and like the number of revisions, etc. And it's good, right? But is that really enough to help you stand out in the market, right? So that's kind of like when we have to start thinking about like who our customers truly are and what do they truly care about, right? Oftentimes, I think like people stay very much on the surface layer in terms of what they are offering to their customers, right? They don't really know what the customers really need, right, deep down. And it's very important to figure that out. Let me give you an example, right? So pardon my very poor drawing and sketching skills. An example is this, right? So, and this is very poignant for us because Ravenry, we started in a research space. And I think also in this group of attendees, there's a lot of research people. So an example is this: clients will come to us and ask us, okay, Ricky, Ravenry, can you tell us how many bubble tea drinks are sold every year in Singapore, right? Very basic market sizing analysis. We know how to do this, very straightforward, right? Easy to price, etc. right? Now, if we just go ahead and solve this problem, right, the customer's probably going to be happy, right? There's probably not going to be any issue. We were able to give them like a relatively good number, with like really good methodology, right? But the deeper question is this, right? Do we actually know what they're trying to achieve? What kind of outcome they want to get, right? From answering that one question, which is like how many bubble tea sold every year in Singapore, right? Do we actually know what those deeper issues are, right? And if we were kind of like to think about that a bit more, right? So if you start to talk to your customers a bit more and understand a bit more about their motivation, about the outcome they want to achieve, you'll start to figure out things like this, right? Instead of just wanting to figure out the number of bubble tea sold in Singapore, they want to figure out if they are able to provide a recommendation to their CEO, whether or not they should enter a new market, right? You should be able to hear things like, are there any bigger markets outside of Singapore? Should I consider just Singapore or outside of Singapore, right? The other thing they might ask is, okay, can I translate, this into dollar value? So like, okay, if there is like 2 million bubble tea sold every year in Singapore, like how much is that, right? Maybe they want to know, maybe their main concern, right? And this is more on an individual level, right? And you do need to solve this as a freelancer is maybe they're worried about getting a promotion, right? So maybe what they're really trying to do is like, by answering this question, they're able to impress their boss, which then will help them get the promotion that they've always been after, right? Or maybe their concern is not so much like doing really a good job in, in their company. All they care about is that I want to save my time. I want to go home early. Someone help me solve this problem so I can make it to my friend's birthday party on time, right? So it's very important for us to understand all of this, right? Because ultimately, like we are a service provider. We're not just a product creator, right? We need to understand deeply what are we helping our customers with, right? On a surface level, it's very easy to see that, or to say that, oh, it's just like a number. We need just do some analysis and write a report for them. But the really great freelancers understand what metrics matter to their customers, right? They understand what are some of the key drivers for them, right? Whether it's fear, whether it's achievements, whether it's promotion, whether it's time, whether it's money. Understanding those things will help you elevate your service completely to a new level, right? And that's kind of like what's important when it comes to defining your offerings, right? Oftentimes as a freelancer, we are very focused on tasks, right? So, when you look at like the Freelancer Marketplace, a lot of the offers, a lot of the requests for projects are things like, oh, write me a 500-word article. Help me kind of like, create this logo or like, do a social media post, etc. right? Oftentimes we are very stuck on the task level, right? Which is basically a derivation of goals, right? Which is like what the client is trying to achieve, right? Maybe what they care about is, I want like more traffic to my website, right? And when they're thinking about the goals, they're looking at what are the things in their way of getting to those goals, right? So let's say my goal is to get like, more sales, right, in Ravelry, right? Maybe one of my blockers like, like a lot of people don't know like how to find Ravelry, right? And we need to kind of like get our name, our brand out there. One, so that people find us. Two, so that people trust us, right? So maybe my blocker is, okay, I need to kind of like have a bit more presence out there in the market, right? So I'll list down all the different blockers I have. One is the number of, how do I grow the traffic? Two is how do I build credibility? Three is how do I get more like great freelancers on our platform, right? So those are the blockers that I need to solve, right? And then I translate all of that into task, right? Which is, okay, I need to write more articles. I need to, like show my face more to like on the social media, talking about what I do. I need to kind of like showcase all my freelancers who are really, really good, right? To kind of like build the credibility of of Ravelry as a freelancer platform, right? But the thing is this, as an individual freelancer, you are very much stuck on task. No one goes on a freelancer platform, or it's hardly, unless they trust you or you've kind of like worked with them for a long time, they're not going to go to you and say, or put on like Upwork or Fiverr or even on Ravelry, I need to grow my traffic, my website traffic by 10x. No one's going to say that to you, right? Or no one's going to put in like, I need to make sure that I only work 8 hours a day. I want to go home and I don't want to do all this like, small things that's taking too much of my time. Can someone help me, right? No one's going to write that down for you, right? It's your job as a freelancer to figure that out, right? So while a lot of times you're seeing like the task, right, which is a derivation of goals, blockers, and tasks, right? You need to climb up back to those goals that the customers actually are trying to solve for, or the goals that the customers are trying to achieve, right? Those outcome, right? Those benefit that they're trying to get from outsourcing this work to a freelancer, right? We need to understand those goals. It's very important. And to do that, we need to really spend time empathizing with our customers, right? It is not easy. It takes time, it takes practice, and it takes repetition. We do need to do this a lot before you understand truly, right? Like what customers think. But it's really important for us to kind of be able to empathize with them and understand like what is that problem that they're truly worried about, right? Small suggestion, right, in terms of what we can do. You can put this into practice a little bit, right? Think about your customer's journey when they're trying to get something done, right? So let's say if their goal is, let's say the task is, okay, can you help me write an article, right? Think about the customer's journey, right? And where does that task fit into their entire journey as a person, right? So let's say the person you're talking to is a marketing manager, right? Map out step by step, what are the things they have to do, right? And where does the writing article bit fits, right? In their entire journey as a marketing manager, right? Once you figure that out, right? Look and like just tag, right? You can use sticky note, you can, just like, annotate, whatever, right? Just look at like the areas that you think have like are potentially the biggest pain points for them, right? So for example, right, like I've put down sticky note number 1, writing article. Maybe I'll put down there, yeah, marketing manager, they probably are dealing with performance analytics. They're probably dealing with like, the product team talking about like, the new newsletter or the new product feature. So they probably don't have time for articles. So I'll put, maybe a sticky note here and says no time, right? Second, brainstorm. Maybe actually this marketing manager works in a startup. They don't really have a lot of people to talk to, right? They are working alone, likely. So maybe the pain point that she's facing or he's facing is probably something like having no one to brainstorm with, right? Or no one to kind of help them plan, their articles or their series of articles, right? Or their campaign, right? Maybe that's what it is, right? And then maybe the third one is, like if you're doing article, this manager will probably need to figure out how to make it SEO friendly, right? Maybe they don't really know how to kind of make it SEO friendly, right? Or maybe they need some help there, right? And that's maybe pain point number 3, right? And basically your role or your job is to keep going with like as many sticky notes as possible, right, around this user journey map, and identify as many pain points as possible, right, in their job as a client, right? And based on that, you want to figure out where you want to help them, right? So let's say if your goal is if your capabilities allow you to help them with, okay, I can help them think strategically about their articles and then I can help them figure out like, what's the right, SEO strategy for it. Then maybe you want to focus on these 3 parts of their pain points or their journey, right? And figure out how to package your service around them, right? And with that, you are actually reframing the problem, right? From, okay, write me an article to like, okay, helping this marketing manager strategize for their campaign, right? So you're completely reframing and solving a completely different problem, right? And with that, if I were to go back to the previous slides, right? You're actually moving up from just being a taskmaster, right? Or a doer, right? To someone who is actually unblocking problems, or I'm sorry, unblocking issues for the clients and solving problems for the client, into someone who's actually helping them achieving their goals. And that's where you want to be at, because that's where you add most value, right? So I just want to kind of I guess leave us a little bit with this thought, right? People don't really buy drills, right? When like people go to a hardware shop, they're looking for a drill, they are not really, I mean, I'm sure there are some people who are just crazy about like hardware and gadgets and stuff, who'll just like look at the different drills and figure out like what's the best for them and like the features. But people generally don't buy drills, they buy holes, right? They want to figure out how to hang that painting in their house. They don't care what will get them to get that painting up, right? Whether it's like hiring someone like a handyman to come in, whether it's like to get like to drag my brother, like who knows how to do this, to do it for them, right? They don't care about all of that as long as the painting is up, right? So what you need to figure out is, what is that end goal, right, that your customers care about, right? And people don't buy drills, right? They buy holes. They want to see that hole in the wall that they can then hang, or of course like with a nail on it, that they can then hang their paintings on, right? So the reason why we do this empathy, user empathy map, right, or user journey mapping, is because we want to kind of understand what is it the client's trying to achieve by buying that drill, whether that drill is writing an article, creating a logo, providing a consulting service, right? What is the end goal? What do they want to achieve with that drill, right? So that's what you need to answer as well as a freelancer. And then figure out, what are you really, really solving for, right? Are you solving for the doing bit? So are they just in need of extra pair of hands to do things for them, right? Are you actually helping them think, right? Are you actually solving problems for them, right? Are you helping them actively and creatively, figure out different solutions to their problems? Or are you providing them with wisdom and experience, right? So if you're a consultant, you might have experience in doing innovation project for, so I'm using my personal example, innovation project for like auto manufacturer, right? And maybe they want to understand like how to translate, auto manufacturing into, I don't know, like bicycle manufacturing, right? So they want to kind of like see your experience and be able to tap onto that expertise to be able to solve their problem, right? So figure out, what are the things that they really need? Is it the doing bit? Is it the thinking bit? Or is it the knowing bit? And based on that, right, reframe your entire offering based on that outcome or that benefit, right? Maybe if you're just purely doing something for someone, right, maybe the goal is really to help them save time, right? So maybe the way you frame your solution or your offering is, I help someone save X hours by doing this, right? If you're doing a lot of thinking, maybe the framing is, I solve problem Y by doing this, right? If it's the knowing bit or the knowledge bit, maybe you want to rephrase it to like, okay, I give people advice in this way, right? So again, depending on what you do, reframe your offering based on the outcome or based on the benefit, right? Maybe the benefit is like, I do things much more quickly than you, right? Therefore, like, you can actually act on your business activities much more quickly. Whatever it is, think about outcome and benefit and not the things, the actual things, the task that you're doing. So just some simple example again to illustrate. Instead of saying, I create logos for your business, you can say, I bring you business by creating memorable logos, right? But then saying, I write articles that are SEO friendly, you can say, I drive traffic to your website, right? Rather than saying, I provide consulting service, you can say, I make you look good in front of your investors, right? Again, depending on your customers, what their psychology is, what their personal drivers are, right? What their fears, what their objectives, their aspirations are, frame it into a way that is relatable to them, that makes sense to them, right? And the reason why I emphasize this is because you want to move away from just being someone who's paid by the hour as a freelancer. You want to be someone who's paid by your value, as a freelancer, right? And I think a lot of the challenges our freelancers face is often like, oh, like customers always compare us to like, people who offer like $10 per hour, right, service. Well, I mean, if you don't actually package your capabilities, from a value standpoint, from a result outcome standpoint, it's very hard as well for people to kind of like value you as such, right? So I encourage all of you to find a niche, right, and be able to kind of like turn that niche into and figure out how that niche will help generate results for your customers, and position your service from that outcome benefit standpoint. And you should by now, well, I mean, if you go through all this activity or exercise, you should be able to articulate your service in this manner then, right? I help achieve outcome for a specific customer by providing X service, right? Rather than, if you remember in the previous slide, I was kind of like just focused on problem statements, right? Now we are focusing more on the benefit and the outcome, right? So I hope that you can actually turn your service offerings into more outcome specific or benefit specific, and use that as a way to kind of like, highlight your value to your customers. And that's pretty much it. In summary, I think there are 3 points that I want you to take away from today. I think one is you need to know what you're selling, right? Don't sell everything and anything, right? Don't also sell something that's overly generic, right? And therefore, second point is find your niche, right? You can think about, the different soft skills you have. You can reframe your capabilities into different situations, different location, different customer segment, but you need to find your niche, right? And the third thing is don't sell the things that you do, right? Don't sell the drills, sell the holes, sell the results, right? Sell the outcome, sell the benefit to your customers, right? And with that, I'd like to open up for Q&A, but maybe before that, can I just quickly share that this is a second episode of an 8-part series. So we'll still talk about many other things, right? As a freelancer, we'll talk about pricing, we'll talk about how to find your customers, we'll talk about like how to write a killer proposal, in future episodes. So please stay tuned with what we're doing here. And do join our community, right? We have like 2 communities now, one on Discord, and we just created a Telegram literally like 2 hours ago, right? So join our Telegram group where we can talk with each other, with fellow serious freelancers about how to kind of like take our business to the next level. I'll be there. I'll be answering any questions you have. And yeah, let's kind of like make this into a community that we all can benefit from. And also we have a feedback form, very short, guys. It's only 3 questions. So if you can scan the QR code and answer those 3 questions, we really appreciate it. It's all to help us, make the future session even better. So we really appreciate your feedback if you can. And while you're doing that, I'll open it up to questions. If anyone has any question or anything that you would like me to clarify or share more of, happy to stay around a bit more to answer those questions.